The town of Cape Charles was founded in 1884 by Alexander Cassett and William L. Scott as the southern terminus of the New York, Philadelphia, and Norfolk Railroad. The extension of tracks south from Maryland to Cape Charles opened the northeastern markets to Eastern Shore seafood and farm produce. Using rail car barges and passenger steamers, the new port established a link to Norfolk. Cape Charles enjoyed rapid growth and soon became the commercial and residential center of Northampton County. The Old Town Historic District, with its many Victorian-style residences, is listed on the Virginia Landmarks Register and the National Register of Historic Places. Let's go. Good afternoon, good people. This is P9 and I am here with another video. And today I am in Cape Charles, Virginia. Cape Charles is a town located in Northampton County, Virginia, with a population of 1,178 residents. So it's a real small town located on the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay on Virginia's eastern shore. So Cape Charles is one of those kind of hidden gems that is located in the state of Virginia. It's out of the Hampton Roads area, but it's on Virginia's eastern shore. And so far it looks pretty nice. It looks like a pretty nice city. As I was riding in, I saw a lot of really nice buildings and history and whatnot. So here we go. But check out these buildings right here. Now this building that we're looking at now is called the Cape Charles Ice and Lumber Company. It was built in 1901 by RDL Fletcher, Jennings, W. Waples, and W.B. Wilson, owners of Cape Charles Ice and Lumber Company, who moved the business to this location from south of the harbor. It is believed to be the first building in the Sea Cottage addition. Restoration began in 1997 by owners John Burtis and Celia Burge. Okay. So again, it's another good look at the building right here. Hey. They have an E&O pub right here.
Yeah, once 12 o'clock, we said we can come in and have one.
I'm at the corner of Mason and Pine Street now. Right outside the Cape Charles Memorial Library that was built in 1919. Now, as far as Cape Charles itself, Cape Charles was a city or town that was founded in 1884 as a planned community by railroad and ferry interests. William Lawrence Scott in 1883 became president of the New York, Philadelphia, and Norfolk Railroad Company and purchased 3 plantations comprising over 2,000 acres from the heirs of Virginia Governor Littleton Waller Tazewell. And on this land, 40 acres were ceded to the NYP&N, and 136 acres went to the town of Cape Charles. So that's how Cape Charles got its start. And you got this really nice artwork right here, this nice mural of Cape Charles right here on Virginia's Cape. Really nice and colorful. And this mural was done by at Emily as an artist. There goes at Emily as an artist social media handle on Instagram. So really nice work. Really nice work right there. So of course you're gonna have your small locally owned businesses located down this stretch of road. Again, this is Mason Street where we at right now. And also, I also want to make mention that Cape Charles is also a beach town. So it's right on the beach. They even have a surf shop over here. So Cape Charles Distillery. So even though it only has 1,176 residents living in the city, or the town rather, they do have a lot of shops. So it's definitely catered towards the tourists that like to come through. They even have a hotel called Hotel Cape Charles that was established in 2012. Look at the architecture of this bad boy. Look at those glass panels right there on the balcony. That's pretty dope. You got real estate companies over here, Par Properties. They have a little shop for, you know, your little puppies and whatnot, little pets. Here's a vacant part of the building. The yellow awning. It's pretty dope. Pretty dope.
Yeah. Good.
Looks like some apartments up there. Hold on, check this out before I go. I want to get this right here. Wow. These views do not reflect my views, but you know, I had to get this on camera, so wow. Just had to put that out there. Let me cut through here real quick. It's a lot of nice artwork in the town, and this is really nice right here. I wonder if that's chalk that was put on here on this particular sculpture, but it's really nice. It shows a mermaid with different colored flowers on it. And it sits in front of this nice work of art right here that simply says love. It's really dope. Now, who the sculptor is, I'm not sure. But whoever it is, nice work, as well as whoever did that piece of art right there on the wall that says love. Nice work, definitely. But let me get back to the main drag. Lemon Tree Gallery and Studio, okay. Be sure they have a bunch of nice art pieces in there. And this is the Historic Palace Theater. The Historic Palace Theater right here in Cape Charles. This was established in 1942. And they're even advertising what looks like the Beatles experience, Britain's finest. Okay, there goes the Beatles. May 24th to 2025. Adults $40, student $15. Okay. May 24th. A couple weeks from now. The boardwalk. They have some mats out here. A light up spinner, okay. Jeweler, of course you gotta have your jewelers. Looks like a lot of people come through here and visit. A bait and tackle shop right here. Bailey's Bait and Tackle. So for all my fishers out there, to all my fishermen and fisherwomen, this is nice right here too. They have these little wooden cutouts or whatever you want to call it. Sits right here next to these tables. They even have a turtle made out of wood, carved out of wood. It's a turtle. It's a bear. It's a ladybug. Then you have the frog. Okay. Really dope. Really nice. Really nice. There's some more stuff over here as well. See, right over here, they have a history tour, and they have this information right here. The Invisible History Tour, the lives of African American and indigenous people in Cape Charles, Virginia. And over here is where the Palm Tavern once sat. In the late 1930s, Samson Shawnee Jones and Emily Jones opened the Palm Tavern, the first sit-down seafood restaurant in Cape Charles. Next, it became a walk-up food stand, the first fast food establishment, then joined seafood headquarters. Built in 1888, prior owner Laura Lewis ran a cafe, pool hall, tavern, and rooming house until her death in 1931. And here is where that tavern once sat, at the corner of Peach Street and Mason Avenue. So it don't look like it's there anymore. I don't see it. I don't see the building. Peach Street Books. So I'm on Peach Street now. They even have a convenience store right here. Peach Street Convenience. AJ's Bar and Grill. This is right here is a vacation rental. It's a nice looking home. Getting more like into the residential area now. But yeah, this is a vacation rental right here on the corner of Peach Street, Randolph Ave. Like a nice quaint community in a small town. Small but yet touristy town. The other side of Mason Avenue. Another real estate agent right here. Coastal Shore Vacations, Coastal Shore Real Estate. Come holler at them if you're interested in getting some real estate out here in the Cape Charles area. Waterfront property. Cape Charles Candy. These are some apartments up here as well. They have a creamery called Cowlick's Creamery. Hey. Yeah. Go check this out over here, because you guys know how much I like trains and railroads, things like that. And it's right over here by the bay too, to make it even better, you know. Check out the design of this train right here. Cape Charles, Virginia. Then you have the silhouettes of the people on the train. Again, this was back during the times where passenger railroad travel was very prominent. Of course, that's a thing of the past. I mean, of course you do have Amtrak now, but this was like on a regular basis back then. And of course it sits over here by the water, by the bay. As you can see, it's a whole bunch of ships down there. So that's the marina. The marina is down that way. And it looks like they even have a restaurant all the way down there in the distance. Pretty nice. It's like the sun is coming out a little bit too. But let me get back out here to the main drag, because there's a lot more to see. But Mason Avenue is really the main drag, where a lot of the shops and restaurants and ice cream parlors and boutiques, you name it, all of this right here on Mason Ave. They even have a medical center right here, Riverside Cape Charles Medical Center. Okay. So it has everything a small town needs. It's a small town blended with a kind of like a resort town, touristy town, so to speak. And this sculpture right here is, of course, you have a Vietnam Wars memorial dedicated by the American Legion, Northampton, Post 56, 1989, here in Cape Charles, Virginia. So you just have a bunch of names of those who lost their lives in the war. It's a whole bunch of them in a multitude of wars, World War I, World War II, so on and so forth. And the people the people there, they lost their lives. They were from Cape Charles. So, of course, they're going to honor the locals. Pretty nice, though. And then you see more of those ships. But yeah, that does it for Mason Avenue. But there's a little bit more I want to get here in Cape Charles, so stay tuned. This is the Cape Charles Museum. It's closed now, but this is the grounds of Cape Charles Museum. And it's a historic landmark here in Virginia. There goes the building for the museum. And over here, they have a few landmarks, a few little historical landmarks. Right here, they have the Jetty House, which is a small white building known as the Jetty House because of its original location on the north jetty of the Cape Charles Harbor. The harbor was created in 1883 by New York, Philadelphia, and Norfolk Railroad to provide a terminal for passenger steamers, railroad car floats. And, you know, basically shifting sands and currents began filling in the harbor, and the harbor was restored to a depth of 16 feet and a width of 70 feet, and a 400-foot stone jetty was constructed at the north end. So this is just basically kind of like a higher elevated home right here. So this is pretty dope. This is pretty dope. And over here is a historic Blossom passenger station. As a matter of fact, let me go check it out. This building is constructed, or was reconstructed, as a railroad passenger station that once served Blossom, Virginia, a town about 44 miles north of here. Built in the early 1900s, the station conforms to the architecture used in Pennsylvania railroad stations of the time. 4 doors, oversized arch roof brackets, a dormer, an overreaching roof or overhanging roof to provide shade in the summer and facilitate solar heating in the winter. A bay on the rear gave a view of trains coming along the tracks from either direction. So this station went out of service in the 50s, and 30 years later, it was scheduled for demolition. But in the nick of time, Tom and Jan Noonan, known locally for rescue and restoration of historic buildings, acquired the station and carefully dismantled it, saving key structural elements in the hopes that one day it could be reconstructed. In 1999, the Noonans donated the pieces to the Cape Charles Historical Society for that purpose. Reconstruction was completed in 2006 with the help of two T1, T21 grants from the Virginia Department of Transportation, or VDOT. Of the original materials, the roof brackets, beams, rafters, windows, and some flooring were used. And thanks to information provided by the Noonans and work of local architect Leon Parham, the building is very close to the original. The interior has been kept as two open spaces to enable adaptive reuse as an archive, storage, and work area. Okay, so this is the original building. So shout out to the Noonans for reconstructing and Leon Parham for his architectural work. Really nicely preserved railroad station. And it brings us to these railroad cars. So you over here, you have the boxcar, part of the Bay Coast Railroad. So this was a standard design that was used since the 1940s, and these are commonly seen on American railroads at least up through the 1980s. And it has a single sliding door on each side, and the door at the end of the car was added later. So these are enclosed cars designed to protect freight from the elements. So they do have that material that could protect it from the elements. And they've been used since 1830s to carry any kind of non-bulk cargo. So here's the sign right here that was donated by the sign company of Waterford, New Jersey. It's a lot to read, a lot of information, but this was used by the New York and Philadelphia and Norfolk Railroad in Virginia's portion of the Delmarva Peninsula. So it's a lot of info, but again, courtesy of the sign company of Waterford, New Jersey, they created this. And it was also acquired by the Eastern Shore Railroad. And you also have your tank cars. And this is a double-walled 10,000-gallon tank car, and it was made by the U.S. or made for the U.S. Army by the General American Transportation Company in Chicago, Illinois. When it operated on the Eastern Shore Railroad, predecessor of the Bay Coast Railroad, it was painted black like most U.S. tank cars and numbered 9487. So these tank cars were invented for the process of carrying crude oil from Pennsylvania's oil fields to refineries. And the earliest tank cars were simply large wooden vats mounted on flat cars. So these larger tanks were made of wrought iron and steel during the late 19th century. And here's the information right here. During World War II and the Korean War, the U.S. Army purchased many tank cars, which they used for transporting fuel. And they are made to be today. They're, modernized tank cars are insulated and incorporate heating and refrigeration systems. So they've come a long way with the advancements of the systems they use to basically insulate and keep and basically regulate, maintain the temperature of the fuel. So that's pretty dope. And it's the BR 200 locomotive. It's a 90-ton diesel locomotive. It ceased operations in Cape Charles in 2018, but this was built by General Motors in 1958 as a GP9 diesel locomotive for Illinois Central Railroad. So the GP9 models contained steam generators to provide heat for passenger cars. In 1970, when passenger rail traffic dwindled, it was converted to a GP10 model by removing the steam generator, allowing the front end of the engine to be lowered. Okay. So it's a very reliable and versatile locomotive. They're capable with good track of traveling around 80 miles per hour. Okay. And Jerry Lewis, the SLE railroad engineer, and the Cape Charles Historical Society dedicates this historic BCR 200 locomotive to Jerry Lewis for his longtime service with Eastern Shore Railroads and his work to save this iconic reminder of the once booming railroad operations that created Cape Charles. and were the backbone of its existence for 100+ years. So Jerry was a native of Cape Charles and began his career with a local railroad in 1978. And as a small short line railroad, each worker needed to do many different jobs. Throughout his career, Jerry served as brakeman, conductor, wreck master, barge loading operator, train master, and superintendent of locomotive engineers, aka SLEs. And so he had many hats, that's for sure. Locally famous as the man who drove the locomotive, he was the last one to operate the BCR 2000 in 2018. So there he is. Shout out to Jerry Lewis, railroad engineer, asset to the community for sure. And they do a really good job of maintaining these. And last and not least, you have the RF&P passenger car or baggage car, which is the Richmond, Fredericksburg, and Potomac Railroad. So this is just a baggage car. It rolled on 6 wheels and on 6-wheel trucks because of its weight, and had provisions for lighting and for a toilet for the baggage car men who rode it. And when the RF&P, or the Richmond, Fredericksburg, and Potomac Railroad, was chartered in 1834 to run north from Richmond via Fredericksburg to the Potomac River, it opened from Richmond to the Potomac River at Aquia Creek in 1842 with the connecting steamboat service to Washington, D.C. So this was basically just like a baggage car. It delivered packages and all type of freight, but primarily, they use it for package delivery, especially from 1918 to 1975. So look at its overall makeup and construction. And we had to come over here to the caboose. The caboose, which was originally built for the Wheeling and Lake Erie Railroad in 1948 to 49 in its Ironville, Ohio shop. It is 34 feet, 3 inches long and weighs 22.7 tons. So this is the nickel-plated railroad caboose. And when the Wheeling and Lake Erie Railroad merged with the New York, Chicago, and St. Louis Railroad in 49, this ran from Buffalo, New York through Cleveland, Ohio to Chicago, Illinois. And this railroad was also known as the Nickel Plate Railroad, a name coined by the Norwalk Chronicle, which referred to the planned railroad as the Great New York and St. Louis double-track nickel-plated railroad. So it also merged in 1964 with the Norfolk and Western Railroad, and the caboose passed into its hands. So once computers became the norm, they began to forward the waybills to destination yards and stations. Conductors and crews no longer needed onboard offices and living quarters because of the advancement of technology and the advent of computers, of course. And end of train devices now monitor the air brake pressure and transmit the readings to the engineers up front. So once they started having computerized systems that could monitor the brake pressure, they could just transmit that information via computer to the engineers. So, these trains have stood the test of time, but they also had to adapt to advancements in technology. And that brings us to the last, site right here in the Cape Charles Railroad Museum. And this is the pilot house. This was the elevated pilot house of the car float or bay barge, Captain Edward Richardson. The barge was built by New York Shipbuilding in Camden, New Jersey for the Pennsylvania Railroad Company and launched in December 1948. The Captain Edward Richardson was over 400 feet long and over 50 feet wide. Her deck was equipped with 4 railroad tracks designed to hold 32 40-foot freight cars and was towed by tugboat across 26 miles of water between the harbors of Cape Charles City and Little Creek in Norfolk. So this thing handled a lot of freight. It handled a lot of freight, but it did its job. And, the Captain Edward Richardson remained in service longer than any other barge in the Chesapeake Bay service, while its associated railroad changed hands 4 times. On March 13, 1981, she began to take on water a few miles from Cape Charles and sank just 30 feet from the dock, loaded with tank cars, boxcars, switching locomotive, and 10 new pickup trucks. So yes, check this out. And let me get the rest of this so I can freeze frame later and read. Yes. But check this out. Yep, I like the sides of this as well. It's really cool barge. And again, I always like how these historical preservation societies maintain the history and preserve these old artifacts from way back when. So shout out to the Cape Charles Museum, and more footage to come. Over here in the Chesapeake Bay, in here in Cape Charles, and right here is a marker, a historical marker for one Peter Jacob Carter. Now, Peter Jacob Carter went from enslavement to a statesman, and from 1879 to 1880, Peter Jacob Carter was keeper of the Cherry Stone Bar lighthouse that was located just offshore in front of you. Right over here, it was the third federal job for a remarkable man who was born into enslavement just a few miles north of here in Eastville. When U.S. troops arrived on the eastern shore in the winter of 1861, 18-year-old Carter self-emancipated, and he enlisted in the 10th United States Colored Infantry, and his regiment fought at several notable 1864 battles, including Wilson's Wharf, Petersburg, and Bermuda Hundred. Carter mustered out in 1866 and began his education at Hampton University while employed with the Freedmen Bureau in Chincoteague, Virginia. In 1871, Carter won election to the Virginia House of Delegates. He held office for 8 consecutive years and was one of the longest serving African-American legislators in post-war Virginia. He also served as a state officer in state conventions and a representative in national conventions. And he was appointed rector of Virginia State University while maintaining his farm near Franktown. Carter passed away on July 19, 1886, and is buried in the family cemetery nearby. And he remains the only African-American elected from the Eastern Shore to serve in the Virginia legislature. Wow. Wow. But here's a late 19th century image of the delegate, Peter Jacob Carter. This is courtesy of the University of Virginia Special Collections. And also it shows this lighthouse right here that was destroyed by the 1859. Well, actually, yeah, it was destroyed by the Confederate soldiers in 1859, and U.S. forces restored it in 1862. So yeah, check that out. That's really dope. And it has a quote right here from the Richmond Dispatch. It says, "The colored delegate from Northampton County arose and urged on by the cries, 'Hear him, hear him.' His voice in clarion peals rang through the hall." And this again was from the Richmond Dispatch, January 10th, 1876. And this is where we're located right here. And this is where Peter Jacob Carter was from, right there in that town of Eastville. And he had a farm in Franktown. So shout out to Peter Jacob Carter. As we proceed to learn a little bit more history right here on this beautiful bay, right here in the Chesapeake. And again, they do have a beach over there, public beach for Cape Charles, but I don't have any flip-flops. I'm not prepared. I'm just barely being able to walk on this little bit of sand that has grass right here. But yes, here is a marker for the Chesapeake Bay impact crater. So a meteorite / comet 2 miles wide crossed paths with Earth 35 million years ago. Moving at a speed of 21 miles per second, it crashed here at what is today known as the town of Cape Charles, creating the 6th largest impact crater on Earth. The meteor blasted into the shallow sea that covered the state's eastern half and exploded with more force than the combined nuclear arsenal of today's world powers. Good grief. Rock flew skyward, bedrock fractured 7 miles deep, and enormous tsunamis raced westward to the top of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Melted rock splashed upward in the center, hardening into a central peak nearly a mile tall, which is directly under Cape Charles. So it was a whole bunch of sediment and debris that filled the crater in what is now called the Chesapeake Bay. But the Chesapeake Bay lays over much of it today. And although the crater is not visible today, small earthquakes occasionally rock its fault lines, and two low ridges appear to mimic its contours far underground. One of these can be seen near the town of Painter, northeast of Cape Charles. The other is just east of Gloucester Courthouse on the western side of the bay. And this is the impact right here. So it caused basically a huge column of water to float into the air. And when the water collapsed back into the hole, tsunamis, aka giant waves between 1,000 to 4,000 feet high, scoured the land. So it created a lot of destruction, as you would obviously imagine. Right over here in the Chesapeake Bay. Wow. So they don't even have any sign of the crater from that time frame. And it would have been definitely obvious and very visible if there was. But it hit right over here, Cape Charles. It wasn't Cape Charles at the time, you know, obviously way before the establishment of the town, but it was right here where this Chesapeake Bay is. I like this. This is dope. This is dope. They have the word love spelled out, and the design is really cool. You have this L right here that has a bunch of shells enclosed behind this glass that symbolizes the L, and then the O is by this tire, a 520/85 R38 tire to be exact. So it looks like something you put on a monster truck or something. And then the V are the claws of the crab. That's dope. Also, a lot of crabs, by the way, are native to the Chesapeake Bay area. And E is like a yellow E. It has what looks like a bunch of cages in them. Really interesting, really dope design, and really dope creative way to create these letters. That's really cool. Yeah, really nice day at the beach. Look at those seagulls flying. Really nice to be out here in nature on this Friday afternoon here on the Eastern Shore. And like I mentioned earlier, there's plenty of parking here. It's a smaller town, so it's plenty of parking. And Cape Charles is the smallest town I've vlogged in thus far on this Virginia tour these past few days. And here's some more history right here. And this is Cape Charles back in the day, Mason Avenue from Strawberry Street. Here was the post office back then. It's a family portrait from back then. Cape Charles from, you can tell that's the beach right there back then. And this is more of a more modern image right here. Some people playing volleyball. And this image, courtesy of Dave Burden, is just a few women over here. What is it, canoeing? Is that canoeing or kayaking? I don't know. It's one of the two. And it's just some history in regards to Cape Charles. As you can see, there goes the bay. There goes the ship right there back in the day. And there goes the railroad. There goes the locomotive train. And growth followed the rails. Eastern Shore of Virginia, one of the earliest colonized areas in North America, remained a seafood and agricultural region with scattered small towns until the 1880s. The construction of what is now the Bay Coast Railroad led to the evolution of Cape Charles from a small agricultural community to a bustling railroad town. By October 1884, the railroad's first passenger and freight trains began running. Within 6 months. 2 passenger steamers, as well as specifically designed railroad freight barges, were regularly making the 36-mile Bay crossing. Trains soon arrived daily from New York, and the Eastern Shore's town prospered as their produce could easily be exported to metropolitan areas. So it's really nice. Really cool history as it pertains to the ferries and the railroads here in Cape Charles. But yeah, really, really nice town here, Cape Charles. Nice time, nice town. And that will conclude the Cape Charles vlog. I'm gonna keep it moving up the Chesapeake Bay towards Maryland. So thank you guys for tuning in to this vlog. Make sure you tap the like button. And also, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button along with the notification bell. That way you get notified each and every time I drop a new vlog. And also, if you're feeling generous, feel free to donate to the PayPal or the Buy Me a Coffee. Links to both will be in the description box as well as in the bio. Any donations, big or small, would greatly be appreciated. And the donations will go back towards the channel in regards to content creation. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and see you guys on the next one. Peace.